Hello everyone, I'm the Saxy Gamer, and today we're here to talk about more Civ 7 because it's just about 1 month until Civ 7 releases. So, in the last video that I released, I talked about some negative things with Civ 7. If you haven't watched that video, I encourage you to do so. My main complaint is the DLC that's being sold before the game even launches, but just because I have problems with the monetization doesn't mean that I'm not excited for anything in Civ 7. So in this video, we're going to talk about some of the positives of Civ 7, so that way I can hopefully help you guys decide whether or not purchasing Civ 7 is the right decision for you. So to start off our list, one of the things that I am most excited for in Civilization 7 is the reduction of annoying busy work in the game. So this is something that a lot of Civ games have previously had, whether it comes to managing units or tile improvements or anything like that. A lot of people have complained that when you get later on in the game, there's a lot of decisions you have to make, but these decisions are not particularly impactful. And it really seems to me like Civ 7 is trying to mend some of these issues. So what's going on in Civ 7 that's helping to mend this? Well, for one, there are towns now, which are a way to help expand your empire without giving you a lot more production queues. So towns work by essentially when you settle a new settlement with a settler, that's a lot of settling, you will found a town instead of a city. So a town is linked to a city and it provides bonuses to that city and your empire as a whole. But the unique thing with the town is that it has no production queue. All the production that is generated by the town goes straight into gold, and you can use gold to purchase buildings in that town. So this is very nice for the end of the game when you would otherwise have a lot of cities that were a pain to manage, because each production queue was not particularly impactful whenever you're nearing the end of the game, but you still had to make a choice every few turns on what you would produce in that city. So now with towns, you can still expand your empire, you can still grow and, get more land, get more resources, but later on in the game, then you're not going to have, instead of maybe 15 production queues to manage, maybe you'll only have 5, which is a lot less busy work. Another thing that helps with the reduction of busy work is the fact that there are no more builders in the game, so you don't need to be constantly managing tile improvements. I think builders are something in Civ that have been kind of divisive. Some people really like builders, but a lot of people are kind of annoyed by them. So in Civ 5, you had workers, which you could just send around to make unlimited tile improvements, and every few turns you had to, decide what you were going to do with your workers. In Civ 6, they reduced this a little bit so that way builders only had 3 charges, and then you could, send them out, and then after you used the 3 charges, they would be gone, but still you would have to manage them, send them out, decide what you want to do with them. Sometimes you would end up with builders that you don't really have any use for. In Civ 7, there are just no more builders, so you don't need to be constantly managing those tiles and tile improvements. Instead, everything will happen from the city panel instead. The last thing that I think is really going to help for reducing this busy work is army generals. So army generals really seem to streamline the management of armies in the game because it allows you, the army generals allow you to pack and unpack your units, removing the need to individually move each unit across your empire. So one of the really annoying things to me in a game like Civ 6 is, say that you're fighting someone on the bottom side of your empire, you finish fighting them, and then you want to go fight someone that now borders like the north side of your empire. Whenever you finish that war with the person on the south side, then you have to individually move each one of your units all the way up to the north side of your empire and then start fighting. So if you have, 10, 20 units, every single turn you have to make 10, 20 unit movement decisions just to get everybody up there. Now with army generals, you can pack all of those units just into army generals. I believe you can have multiple army generals. You can, instead of moving 20 units up, you can move, 3 or 4, maybe even less than that. And then you can unpack once you reach your destination, and then you can get back to individually managing each unit. So army generals, I think, are a really good way to also help reduce some of this annoying busy work and streamline the management of armies in Civ 7. The second thing that I'm really looking forward to in Civ 7 is more dynamic game progression. So in older Civ games, you're essentially doing the exact same thing throughout most of the game, and that's just, you're trying to generate science yield or culture yield or tourism or something like that. The gameplay throughout the game doesn't really evolve that much. The new ages system that they have in Civ 7, though, seems to really add a lot of variety to this, and I think it's going to really help to kind of spice things up as the game goes on. In Civ 7, there are going to be major changes coming from the antiquity to the exploration to the modern age, and I think that this is really going to help to add some variety to the game. So one of the examples I'll give for this is that when you go from the antiquity age to the exploration age, it essentially opens up a quote-unquote new world that you can go and explore and settle on. It introduces different independent powers, which you can kind of think of as city-states. So it changes quite a lot of things, and in addition to that, there are new luxury resources and just resources in general, and there are different gameplay systems that come about in the exploration age, whereas previously in other Civ games, you kind of just, all the ages kind of blend together. There's not really any huge changes between one to the next, but in Civ 7, that seems to really be different. This also is combined with the fact that you are now able to change your civilization every age, which solves a very old problem in Civ, which is that a lot of leaders in Civ, and I guess civilizations in general, don't really have that many bonuses that cover all of the ages. So the one thing I can think of here, one of my biggest gripes with playing England in Civ 6 was that in the start of the game, you essentially have literally 0 bonuses. You can't really do anything navally, you don't have any unique units, you can't really do anything with factories or anything of that sort. It was really just kind of very plain, bare-bones gameplay whenever it came to some of the ages, and different Civs have different problems with this. Some Civs were strong in the Ancient Era, and then had no bonuses later on in the game, but in Civ 6 and previous Civ titles, there was always at least some point where your leader would essentially have very little bonuses. The fact that you can change your civilization every single age means that in every age you are going to have a bonus that is applicable to that point of the game, which I think is really nice for adding a little bit of dynamic game progression to the game. The other thing that I think really helps the game progression is the variety of victory conditions now. So in previous Civ games, the victory conditions essentially didn't really matter that much until very later on in the game. I mean, obviously for something like domination victory, you could accomplish that very early on, but for something like science victory, you literally have to wait until the very end of the game to do anything really involving that victory condition. Now in Civ 7, there is victory progression in every single age, which I think is going to help add a little bit of variety, because the nice thing is the tasks and the goals that you have for each age change. So the example I'll give here is that in the exploration age, your playstyle should focus on establishing a large trade network and trading across the oceans with treasure fleets, or if you want, you could even decide to play as, sort of a pirate and plunder other people's treasure fleets, but the goal is essentially to get these treasure fleets back to your main land. In the modern age in Civ 7, if you're playing towards an economic victory, your goals now change. Your goal is essentially to become sort of like a railroad tycoon. You want to build a lot of railroads in your empire, you want to build a lot of factories, and you want to generate factory products. So you can see that between the exploration age and the modern age, what you're doing is different. In one age, you're kind of playing a navally based Civ that has to go out and do things like that, and even within that, you have options for how you're going to get the treasure. Do you go get it yourself? Do you plunder it from other people? Then when you move into the modern age, now your goals change. You start building railroads, you start building factories, and producing goods. So it's like that for essentially all of the victory conditions in Civ 7. You're able to have different goals based on the age, so you're not just like literally just generating science for 90% of the game until you have to build stuff in the last like 50 turns. Now there's a little bit of dynamic progression here, which I think is really going to help with keeping people's interest throughout the entirety of a game, because a lot of Civ games have had the problem where later on in the game is kind of boring. It's kind of already decided. You're not really doing anything particularly new. Now, I think that the new victory progression system is going to help with that a lot. The third thing that I am excited for in Civ 7, and this is one that I would say I am cautiously excited for, is the ability to mix and match leaders in Civs. So, as I mentioned, this is one that I'm cautiously optimistic about. I think that this is going to be interesting because it's going to give a lot of flexibility to the gameplay and should allow you to try some very unique and fun combinations. So you're no longer limited to, having these leader abilities and the Civ abilities locked together. Now, as you go throughout the game and as you're planning, you can, plan out unique pathways for how you want to go through the game. And maybe you can think of some things fun, like maybe, in the start of the game, I'm going to start playing like a little bit of a domination sort of combo with my leader ability and my Civ ability. And then later on in the game, maybe there's something I can choose that I can pivot a little bit more towards a science victory. It kind of carves out a lot of unique and more fun pathways for how you can go about the game. I am concerned about this a little bit, though. I'm concerned it could be a little bit immersion breaking, having Ben Franklin be the leader of Japan or something like that. I'm also a little concerned that this might be very difficult to balance because now you're going to have a lot of possible combinations that you're going to have to consider balancing. So this is one that I think has the potential to really add a lot of good flexibility and a lot of good fun to the game. But yeah, as I mentioned, I'm a little worried that it's going to have some issues with it. The last thing I'll give an honorable mention for what I'm excited for the game is the art and music, which have seemed really, really good so far. So if you haven't listened to the Civ 7 main theme yet, I encourage you to go check it out. Christopher Tin is doing the music for Civ 7 again, and from what they've shown so far, it's been really cool. I think that the art style in Civ 7 is also really good looking. So yeah, very excited to get my hands on Civ 7 just for the art and music alone. But yeah, so those are some of the things that I am most excited for in Civilization 7. Gameplay-wise, I'm very optimistic that the gameplay in Civ 7 is going to have a lot of improvements over things in previous Civ games. If you haven't watched my previous video about some of the things I'm concerned about with Civ 7, though, I encourage you to do so because my job as a content creator for Civ 7 is to give you guys as much information that you may have missed to help you decide whether or not purchasing Civ 7 is good for you. So yeah, this video fairly positive about some of the good things about Civ 7, last video fairly negative, so I encourage you to watch both videos in order to help you make the decision on whether or not you want to purchase this game. So let me know what you're most excited for about Civ 7 in the comment section below, but thank you everyone for watching. I have been the Saxy Gamer. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you're looking for some more Civilization 7 content, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.